Welcome, and tonight we're having a conversation with the candidate for Mill Creek Township Supervisor, Sam Comfort, the Democratic nominee from the May municipal primary. Sam, it's real great to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, so thanks again for having me, PJ.
No problem.
So hello everyone, I am Sam Comfort. A little bit about myself. So originally I am from Washington County, Pennsylvania, but Erie County has always been near and dear to me. My grandparents had a camp at Sarah's when I was younger, and I'm the youngest of 7 grandchildren. So our summer break, or summer camp, so to say, was pretty much being packed into the van and all of us brought to Erie County to spend the summer with our grandparents. And then when I had the opportunity to move to Erie County, I took a position with Edinboro University of Pennsylvania, and that was about 5.5 years ago. And my wife and I purchased our home, and we've called Erie County, specifically Mill Creek Township, our home ever since. Well,
I think we kind of share that in common, being folks from outside, but have decided to call Erie our home, and,
Sure.
and I know we both love it here very much.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about why you've decided to put your name in the ring for Mill Creek Township Supervisor?
Sure. So that almost goes all the way back to even my teenage years. My family was always fairly involved politically back in our home life. Both mom and dad are former labor members, so we've always had to be kind of aware and astute of issues. And when I went to college, I went to school to be a history and social studies teacher. So my undergraduate's in history. I do have a minor in psychology. Excuse me. And then I went on to go into higher education. I decided, I enjoyed middle school, but I wanted to kind of do have more breadth of experience. So I went and got my master's in higher education and moved into essentially the higher education sphere on that one. So as I made that movement, most of the positions that I've ever had within academia have had something to do with politics, having either to know our local representatives, having to know our local municipal government officials for that town and gown relationship. Mm-hmm. And when I was with Edinboro, even more specifically with Edinboro, I was tasked with, so I was in the office of the president, and I was tasked with building relations, with pretty much the regional political entities.
That's how we met.
That is exactly how we met, actually. Doing outreach for Dr. Hannon and then Dr. Huang. And then from there I decided, I really want to step into the political arena. I always appreciate when folks are educated and really do their homework on issues, and I thought, I think this is time to step into that arena. So,
well, let's actually go off of that a little bit. Your
Sure.
background in higher education, because from what I understand, your resume is I've read it myself. It's absolutely impressive when it comes to your experience in being an administrator.
Sure.
You've supervised people before. Mm-hmm. You've made the tough decisions. You've managed money in the positions that you've had. I don't want to take all the time talking about your qualifications, but
Sure.
just touch on that a little bit so folks understand that you're qualified to be in this role.
Sure. So, thank you for kind of drawing us back to that. So I started my career actually in Bangor, Maine. I was a living administrator for Husson University. And by that I mean I was a residence hall coordinator, and then my title was also a coordinator of student life. So I lived in the residence halls 24/7. I was responsible for almost just shy of 200 mixed student population. So I had freshmen all the way up to graduate students. In that I made entertainment decisions. We made decisions based on safety. I also served as the judicial coordinator for campus. So you name it, I kind of had at least some form of influence on all facets of that student life. There I managed a budget in excess of about $2.5 million just for my residence hall. We went through a major refurbishment, so I was responsible for all of that budgetary oversight. From there I went to one of the SUNY schools in the SUNY system. I was an admissions counselor there and a transfer coordinator. So I had to manage my own travel budget, manage my budget for recruiting the students, and then I also had a pool of the office just to essentially manage my own office space, but I had a pool of those funds as well to manage. And again, those were public monies, so SUNY is a public institution. And then with Edinboro, I managed...
Well, that's also a public school.
Oh, yes.
That should be pointed out, that Edinboro is also, you were managing public funds there as well.
Yep, it's a member of the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. Mm-hmm. So POSHE, for a lot of folks, if you hear POSHE, Edinboro, and now it is now known as Penn West Edinboro, is a member of the public institutions. So there in the president's office, I managed 4 budget or cost centers, with multiple lines within each of those cost centers. So all told, I oversaw between $7.5 to $9 million, depending on the funding for the year from the legislature and any funding that came through other revenue streams at the university.
That's an extremely impressive resume
Sure.
for somebody to be a municipal administrator, because as we know, Mill Creek Township supervisors are working supervisors. They're full-time. They're there all day, every day as part of their role. So you having that experience is really important to note for the people of the township.
Sure.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, What do you see as the issues facing Mill Creek Township? What do you want to do if you're given the opportunity to serve?
Sure. So one of the things I'd like to tackle first and foremost, and it's one of the reasons I got into the race, is much more transparency within the township. It's public monies, and the public should be able to see what their money is doing. I mean, there's been a lot of kind of back and forth about recent acquisitions, and I imagine that we'll get to that in a moment. But even outside of that most recent acquisition, and I'm discussing West 8th Street, the fact that you can't see even just a summary sometimes of the township finances unless you go digging deep on the website or you really kind of have to pester at the township building, that information really should be available to pretty much on demand to citizens.
And so you've been hearing that then as you've been going door to door talking to people. They're talking to you about transparency. They're probably talking to you about roads and
Sure.
different things like that. But so you're hearing that transparency is really important to the people of Mill Creek Township?
Yeah, transparency more than anything, and then roads obviously second. A lot of folks, not that they don't understand what the supervisors do, that's not the point, but they have a set expectations of what they think the supervisors, what the basics of the job entail, and then kind of spreading out from there. So I hear often about making sure that the roads are taken care of and maintained, which to me is also, that is a top priority. And then stormwater. As a lot of people know, longtime Mill Creek residents and even some of the shorter time Mill Creek residents, stormwater is one of the biggest issues facing the township, whether it be it's flooding the roads, it's in your basement, it's backing up. There's a lot of things there where it needs to be, instead of kind of, and I've said this before, kind of a nickel and dime approach or the chicken wire and duct tape approach. We need to have a comprehensive plan put together for the township to alleviate those floodwater concerns and then actually follow through on it. There's been a lot of talk, if you go back and look through news articles and archives in township meetings, of folks getting the planning moving and then something stalls it. Or people bring a petition before the supervisors and something occurs and either the finances weren't right or the political will wasn't there. Well, regardless of political will, if the finances can be arranged, and I do believe that they can, this is something that the township really does need to tackle at this point.
Well, let's touch on finances because
Sure.
sometimes in government, actually all the time in government, that is the one thing that elected officials, whether it's school director all the way up to members of Congress, the governor, finances are the one thing that they're entrusted to handle as elected officials. So I imagine that you've done a deep dive on the township's finances. What do you see as the challenges facing Mill Creek Township with their finances, or what do you see that maybe they've done well with?
So it is a mixed, kind of a double-edged sword. I've seen that the township has been fairly good stewards of making sure that they always at least have in the capital fund the money to cover township employee salaries and township services, which, let's be honest, at the basis form of township government, that is, you need to make sure that you can cover those
Right.
services. There have been some investment opportunities, and some of them have panned out and some of them have not, which those seem to not necessarily have a massive detriment, at least in the past, to the township finances. What I would like to see more opportunities for are grant writing and grant follow-through within the township. It seems to me that there have been some grants here and there, either a small project, some kind of grant for actually let's take for instance, I do believe Representative Bizzarro announced that he had received a grant to bolster the Mill Creek Police Force. That's something where, awesome, that's great. That's something that doesn't come directly from the township coffers, but it can be used to bolster township services. But those are kind of few and far between, even started at the actual municipal level. That kind of came Congress down in conjunction with the supervisors. But I would like to see more organic and kind of homegrown grant opportunities and grant writing and funding opportunities from either the township employees themselves or one of the supervisors. It's my personal belief that one of the supervisors should be solely responsible, maybe not solely, but should be leading the charge on writing these grants and following through with these grants and ensuring that these grants, if they're multi-year, are renewed, or that they have the proper reporting out once the grant money has been used so that it kind of enhances the standard of the township for other folks willing to give those grants.
And that's something the township doesn't have now, correct?
As I understand it, there is not a full-time grant writer.
Okay.
I do know that some of the township employees have submitted grants on behalf of the township in the past, but there is not a full-time grant writer, nor is there a supervisor strictly focused on grants. Not that that can be their only position, but I don't think that it falls under a stated purview of any of the three supervisors at the moment.
And so you see that that's integral to moving forward then?
I think it is. As we look at Mill Creek Township, not that we're not attracting and growing more younger families and more young residents, but we have an aging population. And that's not to say that those folks still don't have a vibrant community and can contribute. That's not my point whatsoever. But as those folks begin to retire and want to enjoy their golden years, they're going to be on some form of fixed income, whether that be some form of Social Security, their own savings, their own retirement plans, whatever that may be. And that's something that I would be very, very adverse to either raising taxes or trying to shift more burden onto our citizens if we can try to supplement those funding and supplement those services with grant funding.
Sam, listening to you talk, I mean, it is very clear that you have done your homework and you are very good at being an administrator when it comes to public dollars and when it comes to managing people, which are probably the two biggest things that a working township supervisor does.
Sure.
I want to shift gears, though, just a little bit to make sure that we talk about this because I know that you've been very proud of it. You have been endorsed by some of the township's finest. From what I understand, the Mill Creek Township Police Department,
Sure.
Which they are probably the largest department of the township, I would say, maybe next to the road crew. But tell us a little bit about, I mean, how did you go about getting that?
Sure. So I was very proud and honored and humbled to earn their endorsement. So that was, when I announced my campaign, I was approached by some of the representatives of the Mill Creek Police Association, and they seemed to be doing their due diligence on both candidates. And so I said, sure, I will. More than happy to sit down with you, have a conversation with you, let you know what I'm all about, what I stand for, and I'd like to hear from you, men and women, here on the force. And as that conversation kind of furthered along, originally I think it was scheduled maybe to only last 15 to 20 minutes, and that conversation lasted almost an hour. And just with the back and forth and the flow of ideas and kind of the vision for the township, and I must have made the impression that I did on them because, about a week and a half later after that conversation, I received the endorsement in the mail, and verbally I got a call from the president of the Mill Creek Police Association saying that they had decided to endorse my candidacy for supervisor.
What an endorsement.
It was extremely humbling. I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most from our conversation with them was, and you've touched on this too, PJ, I may not be an officer myself, but I am capable of managing those public dollars and managing staffs to make sure that those officers, and really not just the officers, the rest of the employees at the township, have the funds and the resources that they need and the support that they need to provide those services to the citizens of the township.
Wonderful.
I chuckle. I may not be driving a salt truck, though I probably do know how to actually drive one. But I'm going to make sure that the road crews do have the salt and the trucks are maintained and they are ready to roll and paid a fair wage to be able to provide those services for the township.
You got to make it run, man. You got to make the operation run.
And that's it. Somebody has to do the kind of behind the scenes, not behind the scenes, but the nuts and bolts of the operation, not the actual nuts and bolts because we have folks for that, but to make sure that those staff members and that those departments have the resources that they need.
Sure. Well, that's great. And again, you can really tell that you've done your homework on this. So I want to make sure that I give you a little bit of time here just at the end. We're coming down to the end of our time together.
Sure.
I want you to tell the people of Mill Creek Township, what do you want them to know? I mean, we're not that far out from Election Day.
No, we are not.
Mail-in balloting has already begun. What do you want the folks to know in one of your final pitches to them as a candidate?
Sure. If you want honesty and integrity and someone to actually answer that question whenever you ask that person that question, I'm somebody you may want to take a look at. If I don't know the answer immediately, I will find that for you. It may not be something that we always agree on together, but I'm going to find that information that you need and have requested of me. If you want someone who's very determined to use your tax dollars efficiently, and that's not to say to constantly use them, but to be a good steward of them, really. Right. But when they are to be used, use them efficiently and make sure that they're providing the best service that they can to you, I would be somebody to consider. And then lastly, if you want somebody just kind of with a little bit of youthful energy and somebody in the, I guess you would say the kind of upcoming generation, bridge that gap in leadership between some of our older generation and our younger generations, I think I'm somebody that you might want to consider.
Well, that's excellent. And just one final thought. Again, it sounds like you have really, put yourself out there. I understand you've been going door to door. What's the last couple of weeks of your campaign going to look like? You
are going to see us in the neighborhoods of Mill Creek, whether that be Asbury Heights, Central Mill Creek, Bell Valley. Going to be out knocking on doors. I know sometimes it's interesting to have somebody knocking on your door at 4 or 5 in the afternoon. You're getting home from work. You want to go to dinner. Or you're having dinner, but I sincerely want to meet you where you are. My intent, if I am elected, or really even if, in general, my intent is to not be some kind of Lord High, unapproachable type of individual. I'm going to meet you where you are if you're willing to have me, and let's have that conversation and that educational moment. Wonderful. We're not always going to agree, but we can also educate each other on our points.
Wonderful.
And move forward.
Well, Sam, this has been a great conversation with you. I want to tell you, as somebody that's put their name in the ring before for office, it's not easy. It takes a lot of time away from your family and your friends, and the things that you want to do. So, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you going out there, putting your name out there, saying that you're going to run for office. Again, joined this evening by Sam Comfort, the Democratic nominee for Mill Creek Township Supervisor. It's been really great talking to you tonight, and best of luck in the next couple of weeks on the election.
Thank you, PJ. It's been a pleasure talking with you as well.
Yeah.